A single fallen strap nearly destroyed 2 careers and shocked an entire nation. In 1884, John Singer Sargent's portrait of Madame X didn't just push the boundaries of art. It shattered them, igniting a firestorm of controversy that would echo through the ages. This is the story of how one daring painting scandalized Paris and changed the course of art history forever. Before we dive into the scandal itself, let's take a step back and meet the key players in this artistic drama. John Singer Sargent was an American expatriate artist making a name for himself in Paris. Born in Italy to American parents, Sargent had been raised in Europe and trained in Paris. By 1883, at the age of 28, he was already gaining recognition for his portraits of high society figures. His style was bold and modern, pushing the boundaries of traditional portraiture. Enter Virginie Amélie Avegno Gautreau, known to her friends as Amélie. An American-born socialite married to a French banker, Madame Gautreau was famous for her beauty and her daring fashion choices. She was what people at the time called a professional beauty, someone who used their looks and charm to climb the social ladder. Sargent was captivated by Gautreau's unique looks and commanding presence. He saw in her the perfect subject for a portrait that would cement his reputation as a daring, modern artist. Little did he know that this painting would indeed make him famous, but not in the way that he had hoped. Sargent approached Gautreau with the idea of painting her portrait, not as a commission, but as a personal project. He was convinced that a portrait of this infamous beauty would be his ticket to even greater recognition at the Paris Salon. But from the start, the creation of this painting was no easy task. Gautreau was a notoriously difficult sitter. She was restless, easily bored, and had a busy social calendar that often interfered with their sessions. Sargent found himself struggling to capture her essence on canvas. After numerous sketches and false starts, Sargent finally settled on a pose that would become iconic. Gautreau stands in profile, her elongated body creating a sinuous S-curve. Her right hand rests on a small table, while her left arm is twisted behind her back, creating tension in her pose. But it wasn't just the pose that was daring. Sargent dressed his subject in a black evening gown with jeweled straps. One of these straps was painted as if it had slipped off Gautreau's shoulder, revealing more skin than was typically seen in formal portraits of the time. The painting took months to complete, with Sargent agonizing over every detail. He was determined to create a masterpiece that would showcase both his talent and Gautreau's famous beauty. As the 1884 Paris Salon approached, Sargent was confident that his portrait would be the talk of the town. He had no idea how right he would be, but for all the wrong reasons. When the doors of the Paris Salon opened on that fateful day in May 1884, Sargent's painting immediately became the center of attention, but not in the way he had hoped. The reaction was swift and brutal. Visitors were shocked by what they saw as the painting's blatant sexuality. But it wasn't just the pose and the dress that caused offense. Sargent had painted Gautreau's skin with a pale, almost lavender tint that some found ghoulish. This was likely an accurate depiction. Gautreau was known to use lavender-tinted face powder to enhance her pale complexion. But in the painting, this pallor contrasted against the deep black of her dress and the warm brown background created an almost otherworldly effect that many found unsettling. The criticism was immediate and harsh, but perhaps the most cutting criticism came from those who knew Gautreau. They complained that Sargent had failed to capture her famous beauty, instead creating what they saw as an unflattering caricature. The painting wasn't just scandalous. In their eyes, it was a poor likeness of its subject. The scandal had immediate and far-reaching consequences for both artist and subject. For Madame Gautreau, the painting was a social disaster. Already the subject of gossip due to rumors of infidelity, this very public display of what was seen as her loose morals was too much for Parisian society to bear. She became a laughingstock, mocked in the very social circles she had worked so hard to conquer. Gautreau's mother was furious. She's reported to have said to Sargent, "All Paris is making fun of my daughter. She is ruined. My people will be forced to defend themselves. She'll die of chagrin." While this may be a bit of maternal melodrama, it wasn't far from the truth. Gautreau was devastated by the scandal. She retreated from public life for a time, her reputation in tatters. For Sargent, the consequences were equally severe, if not more so. He had hoped this painting would cement his reputation as a bold, modern artist. Instead, it threatened to destroy his career entirely. Critics who had previously praised his work now turned on him, questioning not just this painting but his entire body of work. The scandal was so intense that Sargent actually considered giving up painting altogether. But Sargent wasn't ready to give up just yet. In an attempt to salvage the situation, he made a significant change to the painting. He repainted the fallen strap, lifting it back onto Gautreau's shoulder. This small change, he hoped, would make the painting less provocative and more acceptable to the public. It was too little, too late. The damage had been done. Sargent realized that his reputation in Paris was irreparably damaged. In 1886, just 2 years after the scandal, he packed his bags and moved to London, hoping to start fresh in a new city. As the years passed, attitudes began to change. What had once been seen as scandalous was now viewed as daring and ahead of its time. Madame X began to be recognized for what it was, a masterpiece of portraiture. In 1905, more than 20 years after the scandal, Sargent exhibited it in London, Paris, and Boston. The reception was markedly different this time. Critics praised the painting's bold composition and striking use of color. In 1916, Sargent sold Madame X to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York. In a letter to the museum's director, he wrote, "I suppose it is the best thing I have ever done." The painting that had once been a source of shame was now a point of pride. Today, Madame X is considered one of Sargent's masterpieces. It hangs in a prominent place in the Met's American wing, drawing visitors from around the world. The scandal that once surrounded it has become part of its allure, a testament to how much attitudes can change over time. What do you think? Was Sargent ahead of his time, or did he go too far? Let us know in the comments below.